So my name is Algenon Cash. I'm so thankful to have you all join us today for this free webinar to talk about real estate investing. I've been involved in commercial real estate for 23 years. I know I don't look a day past 18, so I know that's hard to believe, but I've been doing this for a very long time and have really looked at just about every element and component of commercial real estate over that 23-year period. I've had an opportunity to finance commercial real estate, invest in commercial real estate, develop commercial real estate, and I've worked across all the various asset classes throughout my career. So that means I've worked on multifamily and retail and office and hospitality, restaurants. I mean, you name it, all of the above. I've been blessed to have the opportunity and experience to learn more about commercial real estate. So last year, I got a call in to really start trying to share some of this information with people. I think so many people in the world want to try to develop and create passive income for themselves. I think everyone in the world wants to have some sense of financial freedom. And a lot of times that does come from generating passive income for yourself. And so a year ago, I started doing some education around commercial real estate and really trying to demystify the process and certainly help those that are ready to get started to find the pathway and then even guide them along the pathway. Right now, I do have a 12-week real estate investing course that is underway. We have a cohort that started back in January, and so they've been going through that process. I do these free webinars once a month just to give people an opportunity and introduction to how the process works. So I would like for this to be interactive. Again, for those of you that are able to come on camera, would love to see your shining faces today. But certainly this is an opportunity for you to ask questions and really learn from an expert about how to invest in the commercial real estate. And certainly for those of you that really do get a deep interest or really want to go further, we do have some avenues and pathways available that we can talk about if you're ready to really get your investing, your start building your investment career. So before I get started, I always just like to figure out how did people find out about this, what attracted them to this conversation, and just sort of make sure I'm learning a little bit about the people that are in the class. So I do see, I think it's Andrea, if I'm saying that correct. I
It's
see you're on camera, so I'm gonna start with you and just ask you, how did you find out about this? Why did you want to join me today?
absolutely, and it's Andrea. So
Andrea, thank you.
yes,
Correct me, please.
absolutely. I follow one of your groups on Facebook where you post about restaurants, and I've seen your post before about some of your commercial real estate investing through Facebook. And the reason why I joined this call today is I recently took a course on tax deed investing or being a real estate investor, and am going through some additional courses, but I'm trying to figure out what makes sense. I don't necessarily know the difference between tax deed investing because that was more on the residential side, and I know that you're going to speak for the commercial side, but I just want to learn, especially with someone that's local, because the course that I took was from a company that's national or international. Thank you.
Andrea, thank you for being here and thank you for being so willing to share. And there are so many courses available when it comes to real estate. I think you can look at every element of real estate. I mean, there's a lot of people and a lot of quote unquote gurus out there that are teaching real estate. And I don't personally, I mean, within my 12-week course, we do talk about residential real estate, but most of my background has been commercial and apartments. And so that's really where I focus a lot of my energy and attention. I will share an interesting fact with you, Andrea. 90% of the millionaires in this country, over 90% of the millionaires in this country, they generated that wealth through real estate investing. Oftentimes, they are not doing that buying single family houses. Most times they're buying commercial property. So retail strip centers and office buildings, self-storage properties, apartments, the larger assets that generate strong passive income. That's how they're building that wealth. I do understand and know about tax lien investing. It's not something I get into a lot of in my course, but there are some people that sort of specialize in that method. And certainly, Andrea, if I can be a resource to connect you to any of those people, would certainly love to do so as well. Is anybody else willing to share, even if you won't come on camera? Are you willing to share how you either heard about this today or what attracted you to this? Why did you want to be a part of this conversation?
Hey, I'm Alexandria Shaw. I currently have a nonprofit, but I'm just looking at other avenues and sources of income. Like you said, real estate is very lucrative and can be. And I heard about you through Facebook.
Thank you. Now, are you any relation to Jim Shaw?
I am. Are you familiar with
Oh
him?
yes, oh yes. I grew up on Liberty Street, right across the street from Mr. Shaw's Break World. And
Oh, yeah.
I'm a huge fan of his, and my family were old friends with Mr. Shaw, and he was an incredible entrepreneur in East Winston, not just East Winston, but certainly in the Winston-Salem community. Somebody that really did a lot to uplift not just East Winston, but the entire community. So I'm very grateful that you are here with us today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You know, Liberty Street actually is honorary Jim Shaw Boulevard. He did do a lot for the community. I'm here to, like I said, spearhead the nonprofit where we teach kids about aviation and drones, and it's nice to meet you.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for being here again. I definitely think the world of him. And I'm gonna tell y'all a quick story about how I first learned about real estate. Now that you've made me remember Mr. Shaw there. Thank you. Kenneth, I know you can't come on camera, but I'm so thankful to have you here. Will you share a couple of words if you can hear me?
Can you hear me?
I
Yeah,
can.
how are you, man?
I want to say this to y'all. Part of the reason why I'm doing this, that I'm even here, is because of Kenneth. He talked me into this last summer, and now he's not even on camera with me. That's how they do you. Go ahead, Kenneth.
No, man. Hey, thank you for having me, man. It's been always a pleasure. Algenon has definitely been somebody who I've worked with a decade ago, and the amount of knowledge, the amount of skills, the amount of integrity that Algenon exhibits has always just been always impressed me. So, you guys are in for a treat. I would definitely recommend that you guys take notes. He's one of the folks in this space that are actually doing deals, and he just loves to share his knowledge. So. Thank you again for having me. It's always been a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to kind of getting some of this good information that you're about to share.
Thank you, man. I'm gonna put that check in the mail right after this webinar.
I'm looking out for it. I'm looking out for it.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, thank y'all. And I think Kenneth is right. Certainly take some notes. A lot of what I'm going to go over the next hour is sort of intro level, basic level stuff. But I do again would challenge you and ask you to stop me, ask questions. If you can't come on audio, I do have the chat screen pulled up, so certainly you can drop questions in the chat. Anything that maybe you just heard about real estate and you certainly maybe you didn't understand it or you don't quite get it, this is an opportunity for us to flesh out some of those ideas and you get some direction. Kenneth talked about my experience, and I did mention to you that I've been doing this for about 23 years. I don't know about a lot of you all, but I think real estate is one of those areas of the investing arena that is oftentimes not as transparent. A lot of people don't quite understand how to get into it. They ride around, they see the houses, they see the land, they see the large buildings, but they don't quite understand, like, how do I become an owner? How do I become a developer? And when I grew up in East Winston on Liberty Street, we stayed in a little shotgun house across the street from Break World. There's an old restaurant there called Zesto and a fish market and some other things. And we stayed at a little shotgun house there. And my shotgun house was owned by a gentleman named Tommy Blakely. Despite the fact I was a child, I can still remember this gentleman's name, Tommy Blakely. And every month, around the first part of the month, Tommy would show up at my house, and my grandmother would give him some money, and he would go away. And I wouldn't see Tommy again for about 30 days. Now, for the longest, for many, many years as I was growing up, I always wondered, who is this guy and why does he come to my house once a month and get money and leave? And finally, my grandmother told me, she said, that's the rent man. And when you grow up in the east side of town, that's what we would have called the landlord, the rent man. And so as I kept growing up and people would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up, Algenon? I used to just say, I want to be Tommy Blakely. I didn't really know what Tommy did. I just know that Tommy showed up every month, and he had several places he showed up every month, and he put his hand out, and you gave him some money. And so later on, I ended up, fast forward, I ended up getting into the investment business. I got my securities license, and I used to be a wealth banker for Solomon Smith Barney. That's really how I got into investments and finance and so forth. And I called on a gentleman back when I was doing, stock investments. I called on a gentleman and wanted him to open an account with me, and he decided not to. And he explained to me because he's into real estate. And that was really when I first started learning more about real estate. When I was 24 years old, I actually left Solomon Smith Barney. I created my own real estate investment banking practice. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just moved forward and wanted to get started. Over the years, God has been so incredibly good to me. And you will hear me reference God quite a bit over the next hour. So if that offends you or bothers you, you might want to go ahead and disengage now, because I fundamentally believe the reason why I'm here right now before you today is that God has guided me to this place and this space at this time for this purpose. And I believe that God has allowed me to experience a lot of the things that I've experienced. And what dawned on me last year, for so many years, I thought God was allowing me to experience this for my own personal growth, my own personal satisfaction. But God got a message to me last year and said, no, I never did all this for you. I was doing it for everyone. And so I really, really fundamentally believe that this is a sort of a spiritual calling. So over the last 23 years, I've had so many different experiences. I've had an opportunity to meet so many different people, and each one of them has sewed into me in some really unique and special ways. So that's part of what I want you to also to start to understand about this business. If you want to be in the real estate business, if you want to start investing in real estate, one, you got to have that courage to just move forward. You got to have that courage to get started. You also have to utilize experience as your ability to learn. In real estate, you learn by doing. I mean, you everything that you need to know in this business, you won't learn in a course. You won't learn in a book. You won't see it on a video. You're actually going to learn it by actually getting out doing it, and you're going to mess up. You're going to do some things wrong, but you're going to learn from that opportunity. You're going to grow and you'll expand because of it. The other thing that's really, really important or has been important to my career is relationships. You heard Kenneth talk about it a moment ago. The relationships that I've been able to build over the last 23 years is what has really, really made me successful. And I will tell you, in the real estate business, you really got to know people. If you know people, you'll know what's going on with deals. You can find opportunities. You can figure out where to invest. Everything in the real estate business flows through relationships. It's not like investing in stocks where you can go pull that public company's annual report and you can read everything about the company and everything is publicly disclosed and there's all these rules and regulations around disclosure. That's not how it works in real estate. It is so relational. So for you to be able to find deals, fund deals, and close deals, you have to have relationships. That is absolutely critically important. Um, I think that if you are willing to dedicate yourself to this process, part of the outcome that you can create for yourself is financial freedom. And I think everyone on this call, I mean, the reason why you're here is probably because you have that desire for financial freedom. So I constantly tell people if you are trading your time for money every week, you have to stop that. You have to stop that. You have to get into a position where your money is starting to make money and you're able to have the freedom to do whatever it is that you choose. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to stop working. Oftentimes, my daughter asks me sometimes, when are you going to stop working? I'm never going to stop working. I absolutely love what I do. I absolutely love meeting people. I like doing deals. I like raising money. I like going around town and being able to see the impact that I've made in certain neighborhoods. I'm never going to stop. But what I love is being able to wake up in the morning and make the choice and make the decision about what I'm going to do today. If I want to go hang out with my daughter today, I can do that. If I want to work today, I can work today. If I want to go take a trip and hang out with Kenneth, I can go take a trip and hang out with Kenneth. It's the freedom to be able to make the choices and do what you want to do day to day. But so many people What they're doing week to week is they're trading time for money. That's what you're doing. You're trading those 8 hours a day to get whatever it is that that company thinks that you are worth. And oftentimes you probably feel like you're worth a lot more than they're giving you. So you have to get into that position where your money is actually making money. Um, and then also the other thing that I've also discovered with some of the people that I've come into contact with over the last 23 years, I want to talk about mindset right now. If you want to become an investor, it's all about shift in mindset. There are some interesting types of people in the world when you really stand back and start to look at them. There are people that I would consider are consumers. There are like people that just love consumption. That's the person that has to have that new bag when it comes out. They got to have those brand new, they got to have the new shoes. They got to take a vacation every single month. They got to get that brand new car as soon as it hits the lot. Those are consumers. Those are people that are tied to consumption. I'm not a consumer. I'm an investor. And when you're an investor, you develop a certain kind of mindset around investing. You start to move like an investor. You start to act like an investor. You start to hang out with other investors. But if you're constantly addicted to consumption, then it becomes almost impossible for you to become an investor. There are some people that are really, really great savers and they think they're investors. The person who you talk to that oftentimes says, "Hey, well, I bought my own house, so I'm an investor." No, you're not. You're not an investor. When you buy your own house, and I really wish that whole myth would go away. People believe that when you own your own home, that that's an investment. No, that's not an investment. That's your house. You live there. That's what it is. It's no more than that. Now, of course, you can generate equity, and people come up with all these scenarios around how they can accrue all this equity in the house, but that's just because you're a good saver. Saving doesn't make you an investor. When you become an investor, it's all about being willing to get out here and start taking risks. That's what's associated with investment. So I've said a lot here in the last 10 minutes or so. I don't want to lose anyone. So I'm going to pause for a moment. And Andrea, you're the only one still hanging in here with me on screen. So let me just see if y'all got any questions or if I can go back and clean some things up. Any thoughts or questions, Andrea, at all? Or
Can you tell us about your first deal that you did? How did
oh
it
my
happen?
God, it was horrific. I just shared this story in my class last week, actually. My first deal was absolutely horrible. I had an opportunity. This had to be maybe 10 or 15 years ago at this point. Well, more than 10 years ago, so probably about 15 years ago. My first deal was a little small apartment complex in Martinsville, Virginia. And the gentleman who owned it, I thought he was my friend, or at least we were friends at that moment. He turned me onto this deal, and he owned the property, and he gave me some excuses why he wanted to get out, and said he was going to sell me the property. Now here's the thing, Andrea. This is really how he got me, and this is how people will get you too if you don't really understand this business. So he told me, he said, "I'll owner finance it to you. So you don't have to go out and get a loan. I'll be the bank. I just want to sell the property and you can take it over." I was so ecstatic. I was so happy. I mean, I think I probably called everybody in my family and friend circle to let them know that now I am a real deal real estate investor. And I just started my empire with these 30 something units in Martinsville, Virginia. Now, Andrea, I did no homework, no research, no due diligence. And after I closed on the property, and I'd never even been to Martinsville, Virginia, so let me add that as well. So I didn't know anything about the community. I didn't even know, I'd never even seen the property. I didn't even go see it before I bought it. So I go to Martinsville, Virginia. Now, mind you, Andrea, Martinsville, I get there, it's a ghost town. I started to do some research, and the unemployment rate was the highest unemployment rate in Virginia. It was at 30%. And I was like, oh my gosh. So obviously not a lot of people in the community are working and the community's not expanding. It's actually shrinking, it's contracting. So I show up on site at my new apartment complex. It wasn't a complex, but in my mind, that's what it was. And I tell you, Andrea, I had my suit and tie on, and my Cole Haan shoes were nicely shined, and I think I had my gold watch on, and I was dressed like $1 million, even though I only had $10. in my car in my pocket or whatever. And so I'm here to collect the rent because it's the first part of the month, Andrea. And I'm Tommy Blakely. So here I am. I need you to go ahead and pay up. And so I start knocking on doors, and nobody's paying the rent. Nobody has the rent money. And I remember coming across one lady. I'll never forget her. I'll always remember this lady's name. Her name was Bonnie. And I knocked on the door, and I guess apparently the tenants have been calling each other, telling them that the rent man is here, and he's here to get the money. So Bonnie comes to the door, and literally cusses me out for even knocking on the door. I mean, granted, it's about 9 a.m. in the morning, and she goes on to explain to me, Andrea, that she hasn't paid rent in 6 or 8 months or whatever, and she has no, she's not paying it now either. She said, "I wasn't paying it before. I'm not gonna pay it
Oh,
now just because you got it." So come to find out, Andrea, after I finally came to my senses and started doing some homework and research, nobody had been paying rent. The property had a ton of deferred maintenance. There was a lot of work that needed to be done at the property. The roofs had issues, the appliances had issues. I mean, the electrical, the plumbing, you name it. I had a problem on my hands at this property. And the biggest problem is every one of the units was full, but all the tenants weren't paying rent. And so I started calling attorneys trying to figure out how I can evict these people. And Andrea, not one attorney would take my case
oh,
because
wow.
because they knew the property. It's like we don't want to fool around with it. So I decided to do it on my own because I'm a smart guy. I'm a smart little guy here. I got my securities license, and I used to work at Solomon Smith Barney. Surely I can take you to court and get you evicted. And so I take everybody to court. I file papers on them. We go to court. My cousin came up to sit with me in court, and also for some added protection because I didn't know what was going to happen. But that day, I lost all 30 plus cases. And I sat there and got my butt beat and handed to me. And when I walked out the courthouse that day, the tenants were out in the parking lot high fiving one another. And, and just, we got him, you know. So finally, I snapped out of it and realized that I had stepped in it and started saying, okay, what do I need to do here? What do I need to learn? And so I went up one day to the courthouse and I sat in court all day and I watched other landlords take their tenants to court. And I took notes on what
Mhm.
they were doing and how they were doing it. Now, granted, y'all, I know y'all saying, why didn't you go to Chat GPT? Well, that didn't exist. Okay. We didn't have no Chat GPT. And Google wasn't quite the way Google is right now either. So you had to sit here and learn it. And so I sat there and learned it, and I took everyone back to court. Actually, got everyone evicted, only to get back to the property to find out they were still in the appliances at that point because they were taking everything out of the units. Long story short, I lost that property. I mean, it was a disaster. It was a deal I should have never done. And I think for those of you that are listening on this call today, there is a lot to learn from what I just shared with you. You will go to these courses, you will go to these weekend retreats and boot camps, and you will have these quote unquote gurus telling you that you can't lose in this business. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can. And if you don't take it serious, if you don't understand how to do the due diligence, if you don't understand how to really review a property or underwrite a property or analyze a property, if you don't understand how to analyze a market and understand what's going on around the property, you will get into a situation that you wish you were not in. And so part of what I'm trying to do, if you can't tell, part of what I'm trying to do is to help you avoid the mistakes and the errors that I made over the last 20 something years. Now, granted, a lot of things have went right the last 23 years. I could keep you here all day telling you stories about things that have went right and went wrong. But I think part of having an expert to guide you is to help you to avoid some of the pitfalls that you can fall into when you don't quite know what you're doing. But this business can be extremely rewarding. I'm telling you, investing in commercial real estate and having the opportunity to work in this business has absolutely changed my life. All right. I mean, changed my life. You heard me talking to Miss Shaw a moment ago. I grew up on the east side of town. My mom was 17 years old when she had me. I never knew my dad a day in my life. My grandparents raised me. And when I say we grew up poor, we grew up poor. I did not learn how to invest in stocks and real estate sitting at the kitchen table in my house. The only time we talked about money in my house growing up, Andrea, was to say we didn't have any. That was the end of the conversation. We don't have no money. So the end of the discussion. Okay. And I joke, Andrea, when I got into the stock business, um, you get the Wall Street Journal in the office. And the only reason I even recognized what the Wall Street Journal was because my grandma used to play the numbers. And so she would she would get the stock paper to know what the number was. And so that's the only reason I even knew what it looked like. But you know what? There was a gentleman that I worked with. He was my managing director, Tom Dickens. Never forget this guy. He changed my life. He started teaching me about money. He started teaching me on how to become financially and economically literate so that I understood the things that was in the Wall Street Journal, so that I could watch Bloomberg and actually know what they're talking about when they say valuations and all these different things. I learned that from him. And when I created my first firm, when I first got into this business 23 years ago, he was my first investor. He was the first person that not only did he believe in me, but then he actually put money behind me and said, "Hey, I really believe in you." And so I can tell you stories, and I would love to tell you more stories. I can tell you stories like that throughout my entire 23-year career where someone just believed in me and they unlocked a door and I was able to walk through and see what the other side is like. So here's the thing. You want to know one reason that whenever I see people say they want to get into the investment business, I always see reasons that stop people. I mean, I don't. I mean, I think anyone and everyone wants to be an investor. Everyone wants to create wealth for themselves. Everyone wants the personal freedom that I was talking about. But I think the one thing that stops people is fear. Fear of the unknown, the uncertainty of it, of making a mistake. Maybe I'm not good enough. I didn't come from the right family. I don't have the right last name. I don't quite know what I'm doing. I mean, there's all these reasons and all these limiting beliefs that your mind will tell you, and that will keep you from investing in yourself. And that's the reason why people won't leave their jobs. That's the reason why people keep trading time for money, is because of fear. You're scared to step out and actually believe in yourself and to actually do something different that's going to ultimately benefit yourself. And I'm here to try to encourage you to let go and release some of that fear and to trade some of that fear for faith. Faith in the process, faith in yourself, faith in the unknown of what would happen if you would actually step out there and start to really build wealth for yourself. Andrew, that was a great question.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Anything I can shed some light on? And we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. We can talk about investing strategies. What are some strategies for owning real estate? What are strategies for developing real estate? For some of you, you might be sitting here saying, Algenon, I ain't got no money. How do I get started? So any question is fair game. Michelle, I think
I have a
go right ahead.
question.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah. So, number one, do you have any international real estate investments? And number two, when you're talking about investing in real estate and commercial properties, are you selling these properties or are you buying these properties to create like long-term income?
Man, that's a great question. I like both of those. I'm gonna take the first one on the international part first because no, I don't do any international deals. I've had people approach me with those kind of opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it on the internet and late night infomercials and things like that. But Kenneth, he mentioned something a moment ago that I want to sort of go back to. The the primary difference between me and I think some of the people you would see teaching a class like this is I actually do this. Like I'm actually in the business, I'm in the game, I'm raising money, we're doing deals. We did 4 large transactions last year. That's posted to my website. Um, I don't do anything that I don't understand. So, and what I mean by that, when people bring international opportunities to me, think about the example that I gave you a moment ago about Martinsville, Virginia. I did a deal in Martinsville, Virginia, and I never had even been to Martinsville. I didn't know anything about Martinsville. I didn't know the unemployment rate. I didn't know what the culture of Martinsville was. I didn't know anything. And it almost killed me. I mean, for a lot of people, what happened, they wouldn't even gotten back in the business. So I'm always encouraging people, if you get an opportunity in a space and a place in an area that you don't know, either you need to learn that area before you make the investment, or you need to stay away from it. So like I'll get people that'll call me and say, "Hey, Algenon, you want to buy some Bitcoin?" No, I don't want to buy Bitcoin. And does that mean I'm not going to make money? Probably so. It means I'm not going to make money. I'm not buying Bitcoin because I don't understand it. And so I don't want to necessarily get into anything that I can't comprehend and fully understand. Now, I will tell you, like right now, I'm researching and starting to read more about cryptocurrency. I'm reading more about Bitcoin because it is something I would like to do at some point.
You
But I
should.
don't have that. I don't have that knowledge at the moment. Now, the second part of your question was like, what am I doing? You said, am I buying or selling, or
Or
what was the?
both, or yeah, like what when you say investing in commercial real estate, the deals that you're doing. I just personally don't like sales, but I do like investing. I actually am in crypto, but I have a technology background. I kind of understand the white papers and things like that, just how you say you can understand Bloomberg a little bit more. I totally agree with, doing thorough research. But I just wanted to know, are you buying? Are you selling? Are you both? Things like that.
So I'm going to give you my strategy and what I do, but then I'm also going to end. I'm going to end by talking about the broad array of strategies that are available. So I have an investment fund, and so I've got private investors that are members of my fund. I'm also a member of my own fund, and our strategy is we actually take our pooled capital. We identify developers and operators who are already in the real estate business, and then we joint venture and we partner with them. And so we become partners in the assets that they're either buying, developing, and operating. But that's my individual strategy. That's how I go about doing it. Some other strategies that you might want to think about or be aware of. You have development. So development is essentially buying land, and then you're creating a structure or a building out of that dirt. Development can be a strategy that will make you a tremendous amount of money. Developers typically do very, very well in this business, but it's also capital intensive. So if you have very little amount of capital, you're not going to be able to get started in development. It takes a lot of money to buy that land, take it through the entitlement process, build the building, get it constructed, get it leased up. It takes a lot of money and it takes a lot of time. The process is a lengthy process, but it is the process that will create the biggest return on your investment. You also have people that buy and hold. So that means they might buy an apartment complex and they're going to hold it for 5 or 10 or 15 years or even longer. I know people that have held properties for 20 or 30 years. These are people that basically they're just buying those cash flow streams. That's essentially what they're acquiring. And they're holding on to that as long as possible. And the people that typically do buy and hold, they typically have access to quite a bit of capital, right? Because if you're constantly buying assets and holding on to them, then that means that you probably are liquid. You've got money. Another strategy people will use, and this is actually the strategy that I started out with, is what we call value add. Value add strategy is essentially you're going to buy that apartment complex, you're going to take care of some of the deferred maintenance, you're going to push the rents a little bit higher, you're going to add value to the asset, and then most likely you're going to go sell the asset back out into the market. Typically, someone that's doing value add, they're going to be in and out of a deal in about 3 to 5 years. You can make a lot of money doing value add, not quite as much money as doing ground up development, but you can make quite a bit of money just coming in and buying something that you know intrinsically has good value, but you buy it at a good price, you buy it at a discount, you add value to it, and then you create quite a bit of wealth for yourself. And then last but certainly not least, for those people that don't have a lot of cash and they're looking to just get started, typically they're going to do flipping. Or if they're not flipping, they're going to do something we call wholesaling. They are not the same, they are similar. When you flip a property, basically, I'm going to buy that apartment complex. I'm going to buy that 15 unit apartment complex. But then within a few months, I'm going to turn around and sell it to Andrea for a little bit of a premium on what I actually bought it for. So if I bought it for 500,000, I might try to flip it off to Andrea in a few months for like 550 or 600,000. Make a quick little pop of money, and then I move on to my next deal. If you're wholesaling, you're actually taking the property under contract, and you may not even be closing on the property. You're not even actually buying it. You're essentially assigning that property over to someone at the closing table. It's almost like what we call a simultaneous dual closing. So those are some of the strategies, Ms. Shaw, that you can utilize. But again, I'll repeat, the strategy that I use is I actually raise capital, and then I joint venture with existing developers and operators is what I do now. But I started out doing value add. I do see a couple of questions coming in, so let me try. You guys are waking up here. It took about a half hour, but you're getting there. So let me try to tackle some of the questions here. It says, I'm really, this is from Ron, I'm really interested in purchasing apartment complexes. Will you speak to this area? Yeah, Ron, I started out talking about, I've got a broad array of experience across all the asset classes, but I would tell you that most of my experience is in apartments. I find that people that are just now getting started in commercial investing, oftentimes they focus on apartments. Apartments are a little bit easier to understand. They're easier to get your head wrapped around. More traditional commercial property like shopping centers and office buildings and industrial complexes, they can be a little bit trickier to underwrite. But apartments is an area where people get started. And when I say apartments, Ron, it doesn't have to be a 300 unit apartment complex. That's probably not going to be the deal that you get started with. Maybe you need to go out and find a 6 unit or an 8 unit or a 10 unit apartment complex that has pretty good cash flow. And that's a great place to get started. Just make sure you avoid all the mistakes I made on my Martinsville venture. You want to make sure you understand the market and what's going on with rents. Are rents going higher? Are they going lower? Does the property have any deferred maintenance that you might need to get in and address? Any kind of renovations you need to do? How are you going to manage the property? Are you going to manage it yourself? Are you going to bring a property manager in to do it for you? How are you going to underwrite the property? So how much money do you need to come up with to put in on your own in terms of investment? And then are you going to finance the rest of it? There's a lot of questions that you want to be able to answer, Ron, if that's the space that you want to go into. But I strongly encourage people, if you're looking to get started, apartments is they're just a great place to get going. I also like self-storage properties. A lot of people don't think about self-storage. Self-storage actually operates in a similar way that apartments do. So they don't necessarily have long-term leases. And I don't know about you, but people love storing their stuff. And it's like they don't want to let go of it. They don't want to detach from it. And oftentimes they store their stuff and then they forget about it. And so if they forget about it and they forget to pay you, all you have to do is just lock the unit, and then you can take everything out, go sell it, and then rent the unit back out again. You don't even have to go through a legal process like an eviction, which is what you have to do with apartments. So I also like self-storage. Self-storage properties typically generate a very, very, very strong cash flow. I see some questions on Facebook, so let me see if I can work some of those in as well. Takoa said this is good stuff. Hey, Takoa, thank you for joining us. Jose wants to know, how do you get started with bad credit? I love that question. I always get that question. So let me turn that around on some of y'all if you're willing to participate. Whenever you go buy a single family house, like the house you're living in, what do they typically look at the most? And Andrea, I'm gonna keep picking on you because you got your camera on so I can see you, but what do they typically look for the most?
And look at your credit score. They look at your overhead, what type of credit you have, employment, etc.
Exactly.
Payment habit.
That's a good question. And Kenneth, my good friend who joined us today, he's actually a mortgage banker down in Atlanta, Georgia. So he does a lot of financing for real estate and specifically for single family housing. So they look at your credit, they look at your income, they look at your employment history, they look at you, they examine you. And this is the exact reason why I'm trying to tell people, when you buy your house, the house that you live in, it's not an investment property. Because if it was an investment property, they wouldn't be looking at the things that I just said. They wouldn't be underwriting to you. They would be underwriting to the asset itself. That's what makes a property an investment property, is because they underwrite the asset and they don't necessarily underwrite you. So when you go to buy your commercial property, what they're going to look at is the leases. They're going to look at the income that's coming in off the asset. They're going to look at how much cash flow that asset is producing. And then they're going to look at something that a lot of people haven't ever heard of. It's called DSCR. That means debt service coverage ratio. They're going to look at how much cash flow is coming from the asset versus how much of a loan you need to take out. And they want to look at, make sure that that income properly covers that mortgage payment every single month. They're not looking at your income. Now, are they going to pull your credit? Yes, they're going to pull your credit. They want to make sure you don't owe any judgments. They want to make sure you don't owe Uncle Sam any money. So they are going to pull your credit. But it's not like when you go to get a residential mortgage and they say, oh, you got to have a 800 credit score or a 750 credit score. I've seen people buy commercial properties with a 550, 575 credit score. If the asset itself is strong enough to cover that loan at the proper ratio, typically it needs to cover at what we call a 1.2 to 1. So that means for every dollar in mortgage payment I have every month, I need $1.20 in income. And if I can show that ratio, I can get financed. I can get a deal. I can get started on my first property. So a lot of times people think that bad credit will stop you from being able to get a commercial property for investment, and it will not. Now, where your credit will come into play is if you're trying to get a property for your business, not for investment. You want to own or occupy the property. You want to put your business in the property. Then yes, that's when they're going to start looking at your personal credit and just making certain that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing. So keep that in mind. For those of you that don't have the highest credit score, you don't have a ton of cash laying around, and you've convinced yourself, you've programmed in your mind that you can't get started in this business, that is false. There are ways for you to get started. You just have to go forward. Adriana, my good friend, so glad to have you here with us. She says, when you partner with the operators, do you share part of the ownership of the asset or just a share of the revenue? Yes. So when we partner in a joint venture, we actually own a pro rata share of the asset. We might not be the only partners in the partnership, so there could be other folks that are involved. But yes, as you look at it on a pro rata share, we actually own a piece of the asset. But here's the fun part, Adriana. Because of the strategy that I use and the way I go about doing it, we always come in as what we call a limited partner. And our developer and the operator must be the general partner. And because that person's the general partner, they have to go out and get all the financing. That means I don't have to get any financing. I don't sign on any loans. I don't have any recourse on any loans. My personal assets are never pledged for recourse on loans. I get to share in all the upside, but I don't necessarily have to take on the liability. Am I not brilliant? Come on, is that not the best strategy, right? I mean, you get a chance to invest and be a part of it, but you don't necessarily have to sign on to that big loan. Go ahead, Adriana.
But but my question also would be, if you want to walk out from that partnership, how do you do that? How you walk out?
What's the exit strategy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the exit strategy is typically going to be one of three ways. When you go into the deal, or when we go into the deal, we have a predetermined agreement with the operator on when we need to come out. So we always want to come out in within 3 to 5 years. So we want to be cashed out within a 3 to 5 year window. And mainly the reason I have to do that is because I have investors that I need to cash out. And so I need to come out of that deal so that I can make sure I make my investors whole. The way we come out is there has to be what we call a liquidity event, okay? And a liquidity event is either the operator sells the property and then buys us, we obviously get bought out at that point. Or if the operator doesn't want to sell the property, the operator could refinance the property and they could buy us out based on that new valuation. So either way, we don't really care. I mean, if they want to hold on to the property and keep managing it, they can. They would just have to refinance and get us out, or they can sell the asset and we can come out then. Now, we have those predetermined agreements already in place. If we didn't have a predetermined agreement, if that wasn't in place, the only way we could come out at that point, Adriana, is we would have to find somebody that would buy our share for us to come out. And we typically don't like doing that because it's not like the public market. It's not like owning, you own 1,000 shares of Google and all of a sudden you decide you don't want to be in Google. Well, you can go sell that in the open market. Somebody will buy that in a public market. When you're investing in real estate, because I'm not talking about REITs, I'm talking about private real estate ownership, there is no public market for it. So if you're ready to come out and the operator can't buy you out, you would need to go find a buyer. But that's a great question. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here. I see Brittany on here. It says in housing real estate, there is more expectations on the landlord than in commercial real estate. How would you get into buying commercial? That's a great question, Brittany. I mean, obviously, buying commercial is more capital intensive. I mean, if you wanted to go buy a single family house, it's probably going to run you $250,000. You could probably put 10% down, sometimes even less, depending on who your mortgage broker is. Kenneth probably saying he can get you 95% financing or something. And so, yes, it's less capital intensive for you to get going, getting started in residential. And so I'm not saying that, for those of you that are at that level, if that's where you need to start at, that's exactly where you should start at. But if you are ready to move to commercial, one way that you can move to commercial, even with a little amount of money, is you can actually start partnering with people or doing what we call syndications. So let's say you want to buy a $500,000 apartment complex. Most likely you can get a loan for 80% loan to value. That's probably about the max that a bank would go. And so you would need to come up with, $200,000 to buy that apartment complex. That doesn't mean you have to put the whole 200,000 in. You could put in 50. Then you could go find another partner that would put in 50. Another partner would put in 50. Another partner put in 50. Then you do a syndication amongst those four people, and now you actually would go out and buy the property together. So that is a way for you to get started if you don't have a lot of money. Another way, Brittany, for you to get started in commercial is also by you can do assignments. So I used to do this quite a bit too. So basically, let's use that same $500,000 apartment complex. So you want to acquire that property. Of course, you can't acquire it because you don't have the 200,000. You could take the property under contract, and then you could actually assign your contract to someone that does want to buy it and own it. You're not going to make a ton of money, but you could make a quick $20,000 or $30,000 just by doing assignments. I know a lot of people that get started in the real estate business doing that. That was a great question as well. Thank you. All right, let me point back here to Facebook. I see some more questions coming in here. All right. All right. So no, people are just telling me that I'm pretty smart and I got it right. So I will receive that as well. All right, guys, we got about 10 more minutes. I have been doing this long enough to know that I can say a lot of different things and share a lot of different things, and I might not still share the exact point that you're looking for. So we've got about 10 more minutes. Are there any other questions or anything that maybe you want me to dive a little bit deeper on? This is your opportunity for you to learn and to be able to grow from this. So any other questions out there at all, or before I start to move us into wrapping up, or all right, seeing none and hearing none, I'll start to move towards close, as my pastor would say. Um, I won't, as people start to go away from this conversation today and you start to reflect on some of the things that we talked about today, and we talked about a lot in the last 50 minutes or so. And for some of you, you might be thinking, I still don't quite know how to get started. Like, where do I start at? And I think that obviously you heard me talk a lot about mindset today. I think that is critically important. And I think everyone listening to this call today, I mean, I think you have to be real with yourself and ask, do I have the mindset? Am I ready to get started? For some of you that, maybe you have very little money and you're looking to get started, you might have to make some changes to your habits. You might have to make some changes in your day-to-day lifestyle to be able to start generating a little bit of money on the side so that you can get into this business. Maybe you're not going to start out buying a shopping center. Maybe you're not going to start out buying an apartment complex. Maybe you're going to start out flipping that single family house that's vacant right around the corner from your house. But my encouragement to you is to get started, is to get moving, to start taking at least one step forward and sooner you'll get to your goal much, much quicker that way. For some of you that are worried about money and how do you get started, I'm telling you, you may have to really, really examine your lifestyle. You might have to take a few less trips. Maybe you got to eat out a little less. Maybe you got to, you may not be able to get those new pair of jeans this weekend. You might have to start looking at your life and making some changes around so that you can start creating that space and that extra income so that you can move in this business. And I know that's very hard for a lot of people to do because we all get very comfortable with the things that we have around us. But those are the changes you may have to make if you want to really create the freedom for yourself. I would also encourage you, you're going to have a plan. You cannot move into this business successfully without having some type of a game plan around what your strategy is, how you're going to do it, what kind of assets are you going to target, the whole deal. I mean, that's critically important. And I think you have to start surrounding yourself with people that know this business. And I'm certainly someone that would love to help you. There's absolutely nothing that I will teach you that you can't go learn on your own. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of books at Barnes and Nobles about this topic. There's tons and tons of information on the internet about this topic. Chat GPT knows everything there is to know about investing and developing real estate. All the information is available to you right now. It's not that I'm going to tell you anything that's not accessible to you, but where I think I might be able to help you or help those that are ready is that I can be an expert guide. In other words, I can help you get there faster because I know the path. I've traveled the path. I went the wrong directions. I went down the side roads. I know that doesn't go anywhere. I can help you to get to where you want to get to a heck of a lot faster. And the way that I do that is I do have a 12-week course. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a cohort that's going right now. We meet on Fridays from 12 to 1:30. It's 90 minutes every single week. I have a new cohort that's going to start on the 26th. So that's next Wednesday. And that's actually going to be an evening class. It's 12 weeks. We do a deep dive on how to find these deals, how do you finance these deals, and how do you close these deals. Right now, I've got 10 people that are going through my class, and a couple of them actually are going to pop in here today. They must have gotten busy. But I think I would be able to say on behalf of them that they've been able to learn a lot and get a lot of value. I give them a lot of case studies so that they can practice this stuff and really learn how to start underwriting and analyzing some of these kind of opportunities. And I absolutely would love for anyone, if you feel like you're ready to go to that next stage, I would love for you to join us next week. And so you're probably wondering how much does it cost? I think Kenneth could probably speak to this. I would love for Kenneth to speak to this actually. It's very economical. It's $1,200 for 12 weeks. So you're gonna make $100 a week investment in yourself to be able to get this education and to be able to get this real world application. But Kenneth, go right ahead, man.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So I guess, guys, what Algenon is offering, I've been around a lot of commercial real estate agents, real estate developers, real estate operators, and owners over the last 20 years. And I've seen it all. I've seen a lot of folks provide educational programs and training programs and things of that sort. But very rarely do I see those folks actually as operators. Actually, the folks are in the kind of trenches, raising the money, having conversations with other folks, and kind of doing deals. So that price point of $1,200, in my opinion, is definitely one that I think everyone should take advantage of because there are some programs that are charging significantly more. And Algenon has every right to charge significantly more. But the information and the education that you receive from someone who's been in the space for 2 decades. And, obviously, I think Algenon, I think you said you shared this with me about 10 years ago. You've made every single mistake a small business owner has made. Unfortunately, but fortunately, it actually allows for the mistakes that Algenon has made kind of can prevent you from making those same mistakes. So and very, very, very few people that are doing deals of this size and this type are actually teaching it and sharing with you. Many times, it's not that they don't want to teach it; it's that they are doing other things. So I just thank you for providing this information to the public. I'm happy that you're finally getting out of the state of North Carolina and sharing this with folks, because a lot of folks do need to know it. And I think it's definitely helps creating wealth for you and your family. So that price point of $1,200, in my opinion, is more than fair for what the information that you can are able to obtain, in addition to what it will allow you to do moving forward. That is amazing.
Thank you, Kenneth. I appreciate that endorsement. And anyone who wants to talk one-on-one about the opportunity, I'm happy to speak with you. I do have a syllabus available for the 12 weeks if you actually want to see a week by week breakdown of what you would be learning and what the education looks like. The other thing that I do in the class that I really love is that I actually bring in the people that I work with. So we bring in real world people that are doing deals, and they actually lecture and speak to my class. So you have an opportunity to interact with them. And I absolutely love that. I mean, obviously, I love sharing my stories and my expertise, but also to bring in the people that really sewed into me and helped me to become who I am. I love sharing that with my students as well. If you're not ready to make that investment, and this is not a pressure sale at all, you can certainly just keep coming back to this free webinar. I'm going to do this every single month. I don't care how many times you want to come. It's always going to be a little bit different because Andrea, somebody's going to ask me different questions and they're going to ask me to tell different stories. And so you're more than welcome to join me every single month for this free webinar. And you'll pick up a lot and you'll gain a lot and you'll learn a lot. And when you are ready to go to that next level, when you are ready to advance to the next stage, when on your time, I'll be here, I'll be ready, and we'll usher you into a cohort. This video, like I said earlier, it will be available on YouTube. You can go back and watch it anytime. The webinar that I did last month back in January, it's on my YouTube channel right now. So you can go watch that. I'm telling you, it's completely different than this. The interactions were a little bit different. The stories were a little bit different. And if you want to take time to go watch it, I assure you that you'll get some value out of it. For those of you that don't follow me on Facebook, I'm on Facebook, I'm on X, I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, I'm on LinkedIn. Everything is under my name, Algenon Cash. I would absolutely love to connect with you any and everywhere. I do have a weekly podcast that I do and a weekly radio show that's also available on my YouTube channel. And I'm just someone that's like really, really active out in the community. I write op-eds quite a bit. You can go to lockedin.cash and you can see all the op-eds and things that I've written for probably the past 15 or 20 years or so. So don't judge me on some of the older stuff. People's minds evolve. I think it's very courageous of me to leave it all out there, though, for you to see everything I've been thinking for the last 15 years or so. But certainly go check out some of that. And then lastly, if you are on Facebook, I did create a private group back in January for people that want to get into real estate investing. My students that are in the current course, they are part of that group. And then some of the people that came to the original webinar are part of that group. So if you want to join the private group on Facebook, shoot me a message or something so that I can invite you or send you the link so that you can be more aware of that. I again thank y'all for everyone for attending. And if you have any questions, thoughts, or whatever, certainly just reach out to me. I hope everyone. Well, I'll drop my contact information in the chat just in case you don't have it. So, Kenneth, did you have a question or something? Man, I seen you come on camera.
No, I just got to a better location. That's all.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, I'm dropping that in the chat. And again, thank y'all for joining me today. And make sure you go check out this recording. My YouTube channel is basically my name. So if you just put in Algenon Cash, it'll come up. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.